Hey guys, so GPT 4.1 came out and apparently it's the best thing ever, or we're just gonna check it out. And they're claiming a 21% improvement over GPT 4.0, which is not a super relevant model, but we're gonna get a second opinion on these claims. And they're kind of like showcasing the model with this. This is terrible, I gotta say. I don't want to come off as negative necessarily here, but just comparing it to your old model and nothing else, this would be the perfect opportunity to just dunk on something else. All right, and no information. So essentially, they kept the latency the same and slightly improved the intelligence for the not limited version, but I suppose the mini improved the most. And even later, they are only comparing to their own models. Yet, interestingly, they are claiming that this GPT 4.1 is better than O3 Mini High. Very interesting. So let's just see. We have GPT 4.1 here, and it's better than GPT 4.0. So this pretty much checks out. But even this, with this ranking, it would be fairly far away from the top. So from this, we can possibly conclude right away that it is commercially irrelevant. Even if we just straight up select it on this site, we can see that the input price is $2 and the output price is $8. And it is worse than DeepSeek V3, which is significantly cheaper. Also, there are also significantly cheaper models than even that, like QVQ32B. And arguably the main starting point would be the context window, but even then, the price is probably not right. But it predictably gives it an advantage in long context deep comprehension, which is dominated by Gemini with 90% at 120K context. But the recent GPT 4.1 is at 62, and the GPT 4.0 would be at 65. But the results can vary a little bit. Essentially, it's kind of on the level of GPT 4.0. Of course, this would be better portrayed with a longer context window, but GPT 4.0 wouldn't be able to deal with that at all. There aren't that many models that have a longer context window like 1 million. It's mostly owned by Google or, I guess, XAI. So the Gemini models or Grok. On the other benchmark, because they're kind of claiming that it might be okay for coding, we can see that it's pretty much on the level of Claude 3.5, which is pretty okay. A few months back, Claude 3.5 was still a relevant contender. But I'm not sure that it's good enough these days, especially because we can see the price next to it. So we can see that for the same task, this would cost you $10, while DeepSeek V3 would cost you $1, while being better. And if you want the better model, then I guess DeepSeek R1 is kind of there, but the main one to consider would be Gemini 2.5 for $6 for the same problem, predictably, I suppose. On Operator, we actually have some good information here that the latency is actually a 0.66 with a throughput of 50 tokens per second. So this is actually pretty good latency, but I would wonder if you care about latency that much. Or at very least, I would make the argument that this would be a far more impressive metric if it was actually coupled with a high token per second. Because let's even suppose that, other AIs kind of take their time. Now, I'm deliberately picking a harder example here. Gemini 2.5 Pro. So, a latency here, let's just say 10 seconds, right? Let's just say like 0 seconds versus 10 seconds. But the tokens per second is just insane here. Of course, this is an extremely smart model too. Literally the smartest. And also has a 1 million context window. But that latency was more of an outlier because Google's other model, Gemini 2, Flash, has the same latency, arguably, and also much higher tokens per second. But the most notable feature here is the price, 0.1 in and 0.4 out. Well, we can see that overall score-wise, Gemini 2 Flash would get like 55, while GPT 4.1 gets 58.5. Yet, even using the most popular model currently on OpenRouter, we can see that the latency is 1.7 seconds. So, how much does latency matter? And this is probably a better comparison because the tokens per second is similar. But still, we can argue that currently it's a little bit still relevant because a higher context window is still uncommon. So Gemini 2.5 Pro has it, but it's still kind of in a preview phase, and I guess it's more expensive, although you're definitely getting a lot more. And then if you want a 1 million context window model, then and you want to maximize intelligence, I guess your choice would have to be GPT 4.1. And Grok 3 would come short of it. But keep in mind that if Gemini 2 actually serves your needs, then it's gonna be infinitely, essentially, well, significantly more a useful solution. And another very relevant competitor would be Llama 4 Maverick, which is at least close, but of course it depends on what you want to use it for. And they also have a 1 million context window, in and out, pretty dang cheap, significantly cheaper. It's only kind of beaten by Gemini in this category, while it has a better latency and throughput. It kind of feels like I'm always dunking on OpenAI AIs, but it's not because they are bad, I suppose, but they are priced very strangely. So if it had like 1/20th the price, then it would be more tempting. And the crushing part is that it pretty much doesn't matter if it somehow even scores higher later. So possibly better benchmarks come out or whatever. Because we still have Gemini 2.5 Pro, which is 125 in and 10 out. If you actually care about intelligence, then it's gotta be the right choice. So, cool AI. Good to see another high context window model. We definitely need those, but OpenAI need to just fire the guy who's pricing things.